All right, it is day 4 or blog 4. I shot this video a couple other times, so it feels weird to keep saying this, but it's my 4th blog on quarantine, under quarantine. Um, the coronavirus quarantine of 2020. I'm in Seattle. I'm in my basement. I actually had to wait until I'm right next to my laundry machine, which I had to wait till it finished because the sound was horrible. I don't have any real equipment. I'm just recording this on a laptop, so I need all the help I can get. It's obviously not the most professional blog ever created. Um, anyway, what I want to talk about today was my what has helped me more through this quarantine than anything else is because I recovered from depersonalization derealization disorder. About 4 years ago, for approximately 6 to 7, 8 months, I had depersonalization derealization disorder. It started around June 15th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I started to go inside my head and I started to get anxiety. And I was feeling that I've never had. I had very, very strong anxiety. Like I was completely losing control of everything. And it's strange to talk about that type of anxiety when you don't have it because you don't really I don't feel that way at all anymore. So it's almost hard for me to imagine. But I started to feel anxious and I was scared and my perception started to change. And the first thing I thought was I couldn't get it back. My perception of the world. There was something about the world that was changing. And the first thing I thought, honestly, after it went on for a little while, maybe I need to sleep, maybe I need to do this, maybe I need to do that. There's something I feel like I'm slightly out of this, and I can't seem to get it back. And I did something I should not have done that night. I started going around the internet looking up things, and I thought for sure I'm becoming schizophrenic or something. I felt strange before that for quite a while, and I didn't know why. I might have been triggered by marijuana because I had some weed the weeks prior, but who knows? I wasn't having it at that point, but there seemed to be something that was stuck in my head. That's all I can say about that. I was also under a lot of pressure, so I think the pressure, the job situation, I was under pressure because I was working on one of my own apps. I wasn't working. I was writing an iPhone app, and which is something I've done many, many, many times. But I've been like sort of a web entrepreneur, if you will, for a long time. I've had some successes. I've had a lot more failures, but I was stressed because this was taking a long time. Wasn't making any money. I got a kid. There was a lot of issues going on at the time in my life. So around 2 o'clock in the afternoon on June 13th, or June 15th, I should say, I something started to change. My perception of the world started to change, and that made me anxious. I did not know what was going on, or did not know what was going wrong. Um, and when I was researching it, I read a lot about. Started to get very scared. I thought, oh, maybe I got a brain tumor. Maybe I've got. I thought really I had like schizophrenia or something because the world was obviously different, but I couldn't quite put my hand on it, my finger on it. I didn't know if I wasn't hallucinating, but something was definitely not the same. And I came home that night and I decided that I should probably just sleep it off. And I couldn't really sleep. I was like laying down, and I actually started to feel sort of like terrified. And as I went to sleep, I would go to sleep for a few hours. And I wake up with I think it was I was having panic attacks. I would wake up and I'd have these horrible, horrible like panic attacks, and the feeling wouldn't go away. The detachment wouldn't go away. And I managed to get a little bit of sleep, and I woke up the next morning, and I felt a little bit better for about 5 minutes, and then it all came back. And what I would find was every morning I would have that same experience. I would get up and I would feel relieved because it had finally gone away. And then within about 5 minutes, it would come right back. And I think people experience depersonalization, derealization disorder in a lot of different ways. it's even hard for me to think about how I perceived the world during that time because it's so outside the norm of how I perceive the world. It's a very strange thing. And I was doing all this research and trying to figure out how to do it. And one day I was researching, I was in a co-working space and a guy walked past me and he saw what I was researching. And I found this thing about depersonalization. And he said, "Oh, I had that." And he told me about it. He said he had it for like 3 or 4 years. Super nice guy. His name was, I think it was Cody. And anyway, that was really helpful. I mean, it was also helpful that he got over it, but it wasn't going away, and it was torturous. It was 24 hours a day. I was in this state. It's like this state, kind of how you feel maybe when you wake up in the morning and you're trying to get back into your normal state of consciousness. I remember I was watching TV one day, and I wasn't doing very well watching it because my brain was stuck in was attached to all these different details, and I couldn't, things were bothering me, and I couldn't figure it out. And then I began to realize that my perception of the world is the same way people that when the same perception you have of a television show. It was like there was this glass wall, like my life had become the television show, and I was the viewer who was watching the show. And it was bad. It was horrible. And I'd have these things where one of the things that started to happen after a period of time was I'd started to wake up in the middle of the night and it would just be like this, it'd be like a pit. That's the only way I could describe it. Like your whole chest had just been in this pit. It's like this hole in your body. And it was depression or anxiety, and this depersonalization thing, and it was miserable. It was miserable because it never went away. Felt like, oh, like I want to just go somewhere, have an excuse, or do something, and whatever I did, it just would. I kept waiting for it to go away, and a month passed, and then another month passed, and then another month passed, and over time, I began to understand it better and figure out ways to both cope with it and maybe started to figure out some ways to get past it. There's some strange things that I do. One thing I did was I drank a lot of water. When I was urinating, strangely enough, when I was peeing, I didn't have it. Like, yeah, some reason I went back into my brain. And as crazy as it sounds, for that 2 or 3, I don't know, that minute that you are using it, you felt it was like, oh, it's a little bit of a vacation. And around July, I think I had a really bad episode. I woke up in the middle of the night and I felt as bad as I've ever felt before. It was just this complete and total emptiness, like you had just entered this void, and it was horrible. It just couldn't get any worse, and that terrified me because I was just like, I just can't believe I've never felt this bad before in my life. This is horrible. I just couldn't feel any worse. And so what I did at that point, I had a very strange day that day. I got up early in the morning. I hopped on my bike. I like to ride my bike. I decided I was going to ride all the way around Lake Washington in Seattle. So I took off, and honestly, and usually if I pound out exercise, sometimes I can get something out of it. I mean, for years I've been able to do this. And when I was in this whole period, I was exercising very hard, very, very hard. And I think the exercise was somewhat helping, but I always expected that if I'd run like 10 miles, I could somehow break my brain out of it. And that just didn't happen. I'd have it while I was running. I'd have it before I was running, and I'd have it after I was running. And it was even worse because I wanted it to go away so bad. I felt like I'd paid the price. I did what I needed to do. I ran 10 miles or ran 6 miles or whatever, and it didn't matter. I was actually kind of felt like, ripped off, you might. Like, hey, I put in the work. I want the feeling. But I couldn't get it. No matter what I did, I just couldn't get it. So this night was truly one of the worst nights of my life. I just woke up and it was amazing. It was just amazingly horrible. So I got up the next morning and I had to do something. There's just action had to be taken. So I got on my bike. I decided I'm going to ride around Lake Washington. I don't know how far that is. And I was not totally. I was going to go through, ride north and then go through Bellevue and just try to like meditate and get myself out of this because I was still in this state. So I started riding and I started riding and nothing was working. It was horrible. It was just like this blackness is what I would describe it as, that I hadn't felt like I felt like pieces of that, but I never felt like that before. And I rode and I rode and I rode and I rode all day. I mean, I started probably around 9 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd been riding all day. I didn't feel any better. And I sat, it was like a coffee shop, and I sat outside and I just looked off. I just had a small cup of coffee with me. I was trying not to drink coffee because I thought the caffeine might, add to my anxiety. And just nothing was working. And it was at that point, I think, that I sort of gave up. It was like, that whatever this is, it's going to kill me. I'm going to accept it. Okay, I got it. Like, there's no getting out of this. And I just sat down and I meditated for a while, and I came out of it. And I was like, not like I was like an emotional release. Like it was for something changed in my brain, and I had this like emotional release. And I still had it, but I didn't have that extreme form of depersonalization, that extreme like just the blackness that you can hit. And I went home that night, and something very, very strange happened. I had been waking up around 2 o'clock in the morning every night. I had this. I'd woken up before this at 2 o'clock in the morning, like as many people do, worried. For some reason, I always get this thing where when I'm worried about stuff, 2 o'clock in the morning, I just wake up and I sit in a chair. And what I was doing was I try to meditate and go back to sleep. Well, I woke up at my 2 o'clock, my regularly appointed 2 o'clock in the morning time, and I thought, okay, I'm ready for it. This happens every night. I expected it. And I went into something that I can't describe. It was like I had a panic attack. And what I mean by that, but it wasn't a panic attack. Regularly, I think when I was waking up, I was having all this anxiety and this panic and all the rest of this that's brought on by the depersonalization. And I woke up and it was like my body was fighting to get into this panic attack, but it couldn't. And it was like almost like my chest and my body, like I had this feeling. And I was actually still happy. I was happy. The endorphins from the ride were like fighting with whatever it was that was in my body that was trying to give me the panic attack. And I was kind of almost like vibrating, but I was like, I had some of the internal um, pulsating feelings that you might get during a panic attack, but I wasn't having a panic attack. I was actually happy. It was it was a very, very strange thing. I don't know if anyone else has ever experienced that out there, but it was a happy panic attack. That was what it was, if such a thing is possible. And for some reason, that seemed to break me out of some of my depersonalization. Now, what I want to do was, when I had depersonalization, I spent a lot of time on the internet. And the thing that I would mention, first of all, is if you have depersonalization, don't read the horror stories. If you go out there, you're going to find a lot of horror stories. Most people that have this, it goes away for some reason, and I don't know why. This is what happened to me, and it seems like there was a lot of stories in like the 6 or 7 months. Most people, it lasts like 6 or 7 months. Some people have it shorter, some people have it longer, but a lot of people have it around 6 or 7 months. There are things you can do to help yourself. One thing that I would do that's key, I would drink a lot of water. Exercise every single day. Exercise is key. Meditation is really good. I did Zazen, which is Zen meditation. I wasn't very good at it, to be totally honest. When I started, I could barely sit still for 3 minutes. I was, I got to do this or do that, or like the anxiety. But over time, it built up, and I got to the point where I could probably do it for maybe, I would say 40 minutes. That was and I would do it all the time, and it was so helpful. I was able to go deep into my mind. I don't. It's amazing how far you can go into your head if you have to. Um, and I didn't realize that, but one of the things that you'll get with depersonalization is you're going to dig up a lot, and it's good that you dig up a lot. You're going to go through things that um, you gotta examine your life, examine the things that you your history, why you feel about certain things. I think you should write down like what's the emotional things in your life, and I really think you should just my advice would be just look at them, write everything down, write the stuff that bothers you, write the secrets, the things that bother you, write it, just like really dig in there, because there's probably some things back in there that are going to be that will help you if you can get them out. That's a key thing. Other things that I would do, candles and fire are great. I don't know if this works for everyone, but for me, if I lit a candle and looked at it, for some reason, it would help pull me out of this. Symptoms that I had, I would often see lights. Like I had a light in my hallway, and I could tell when I was going into it because it would turn blue. It would have like a bluish tint to it. And also, I didn't like car headlights at all. Car headlights always had auras around them, these big circular auras. When I woke up, I would see a lot of, those little things that you see in your eye, those little, I don't know what they are, little squiggles that you see in your eye. Those would cover my whole field of vision. So those were basically like symptoms that I had. So the three things, when you do this, you're gonna have to, you're gonna have to own it. I would say drink a lot of water. Make sure you exercise every day, and you're not going to get immediate benefits from that. And if you need to, you may have to spend a day where you go the whole day hard, because there may be a point that you're going to get to where you have to come out of it, at least for a little while, in order to just rest. And the only way I could possibly do that was to go ride my bike 40 or 50 miles, and that was pretty much what would do it. It would give me a little bit of a vacation. Whatever you do in this, you're going to have to pay for, because you're going to have to own it. You're going to have to be a hero. You really, really can't treat this as a victim. When you go into panic, if you have terror, I would get scared of like things that, I mean, mostly it would scare me would be when something that I knew something that I was looking at had changed in a way that highlighted that I had something wrong with me. I mean, if like the blue light, when I looked at the light and it would turn blue, I knew that was something was wrong, and that was terrifying. And when I first got it, I would avoid these things. Oh, I can't do this because this is terrifying. If I look at this thing, it's horrible. The opposite is what you need to do. What I found was, if you start to have a panic attack, go into the panic attack. Don't go away from it. Make it as bad as you can. If you're scared of something that doesn't make, it doesn't make any sense. Like, it's a light. Why would it matter if it you need to go to it. Go there. Approach it. Make yourself as bad as you can get. And what you're going to find is it doesn't work. You can't run towards something you're scared of. You're going to gain a sense of control. And the minute you start gaining control, somewhere in your mind, something's going to change. Here's one thing that I found too, that I've read this on other blogs, and I don't know why this works. I have no clue. But for some reason it does. A lot of people seem to come out of this when they go on like a vacation, when your entire surroundings change and you can't be stuck in your head anymore. A lot of people seem to come out of it. I don't know why that is. I went on vacation to Michigan. I live in Washington. I went on vacation to Michigan for like 2 weeks, and I could feel it in the background, but I really didn't have it in the same way. Something was working to heal me. I don't know what it was. Sometimes you feel these things that are inside of you that are healing to you. There's other things you can do, and this was something that I got from a Zen Buddhist monk, which was great advice, wonderful advice. You're going to feel things inside of you when you have this, and that are psychological. Like you'll feel pain, I mean like a physical pain. You may feel a lot of times you may feel nauseous, like, oh, did I eat something? It's like I was always worried that I was eating things that were going to be that could be poisoned. And I didn't really think they were poison, but for something they'd hurt so badly once like ate that. I was always like worried because and it would just be like, I just want to throw up. If you have a loved one, if you have a wife, a girlfriend, a daughter, really anybody around, I mean, I would, my wife, just have them, and this is a very simple thing. I got this from a Buddhist monk. He said, just, you have this feeling in your chest. And I said, yeah, I do. And he said, well, just have your wife put her hand there. That's all. And I thought, oh, well, why would that? I don't understand that. But it worked. And I went after dinner. My wife would just lay there. My wife would put her hand on, and it actually worked, and it helped me get better. Sleep. I slept a lot. And I don't mean I wouldn't, you need to be on a schedule, don't sleep during the day, but you need to get enough sleep at night. I could feel when I got enough sleep, when I could get past the panic attack or whatever was trying to keep me up, and I got enough sleep, I would wake up and I'd feel like something was healing in my brain. Some chemical was, you know, some chemical there, the happy chemical or whatever it was that was in there was my brain was healing. Something was rebalancing in there. So sleep is a very, very important part of this. That's another piece. Everybody's different. I don't know if what worked for me is going to work for you, but I really honestly hope that it does. I know there's lots of people doing a lot of different things. One of the things that actually worked well for me was toward the end of it, as I was coming out of it, I got a job offer from Google, and I had to take a test. And I've actually worked for Google in the past as a contractor, and I really wanted the job at Google because I had a very happy time contracting at Google. And I studied, and I studied, and I really wanted this job. And I didn't get the job. But I did get the studying, and that the focus and all the rest of that brought me out of my head, and I began to be able to sleep, and I began to be able to not think about the depersonalization disorder. And as I quit thinking about it, it's not something that goes away where you just snap your fingers. A lot of people think it comes on or it goes away the same way that it comes on. For a lot of people like myself, I know the exact time and date that my depersonalization disorder started, and but it didn't go away that way. It went away where I just quit kind of thinking about it, and as I quit thinking about it, it started to disappear. So if you can, go on vacation and go to vacation somewhere that totally changes your environment. Complete change of your environment. I think when your mind has to concentrate on new things, it has more trouble um, going inside of itself and doing the things that it's going to do for the depersonalization disorder. So those are all things that help me. Zen meditation helped me a lot. If I got it today, I think I'd probably um, try to within a week just try to go on a vacation for somewhere where I have to do something. Not like a sit around the pool type vacation. I don't like those type of vacations anyway. But somewhere maybe like hiking somewhere, going somewhere and helping people. Like I heard about a guy that went to I think Colombia, and he was working. He had it for years, and he was working in I think the some kind of poverty stricken area in Colombia, and he realized that after a few weeks didn't quit, had forgotten about it. He quit thinking about it. When you forget about it for some reason, it goes away. I don't know. None of it makes sense. Getting it doesn't make sense. The way it goes away doesn't make sense. The way it makes your mind feel doesn't make sense. um, I also like certain books. I read a lot about Buddhism. There's things like Eckhart Tolle. Eckhart Tolle was very helpful. The Power of Now. Just ways to change sort of my perception of the world. And I'm going to tell you the silver lining that you're going to get out of this. I think that when you get past it, at least for me, once I got past the depersonalization, I was a happier person. The things that bothered me before don't bother me as much anymore. And I'm really grateful for that. I think having to struggle with that, having depersonalization, derealization, and having to go inside your head, it's like taking your brain in for a tune-up. You can really it will change you, and it will change you in ways you didn't really. I'm surprised what it did to me. But to this day, I'm honestly a happier person, and it's easier for me to go through things. I and at the end of it all, I survived it, and I think you will too. I mean, I got better, and it's your turn now. If you've got this, I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to get better. You really are. It's going to surprise you, but you really are going to get better. Um, and You're a strong person. You got to be a hero with this one, because if the drug and one other question that people always ask me too is, what drugs work for you? None. They made it worse. um, Honestly, there was one time where I was having a panic attack that I think they gave me Klonopins. I did not want to take Klonopins because I knew some people that were already addicted to those. Um, I took maybe one, but I was really trying to stay away from the drugs, and I was able to get past it without the drugs. And my bonus, your prize, if you will, for having dealt with this is a lot of happiness and a lot of brightness in the future. So if you got this, I'm really hoping that something I said can help you. And maybe it's not my way. There's a lot of people on the internet that have had this experiences with it too. Anyway, that's my experience with depersonalization, derealization disorder. Oh, and it's day 22 of my creative quarantine blog. Use the time, don't let the time use you, because you can do a lot with this time. Anyway, good luck.